Fuck off.
That's fucked up. That's fucked up. That's really fucked up. Let's wait for the show to go live. There it is. What is up, everybody? Welcome in to the DNVR Nuggets podcast. Hey, Eric, just as I remember you.
I mean, off-season, I can't conjure that kind of false.
Yes, you can.
I've seen you're on me all this time. No, after a game, no problem. Middle of whatever month this is, how far away from the Denver Nuggets as possible. Can't do it.
Eric, are you not happy? As a person, like in your core, like the core of who you are.
How deep do you want to go with this?
I went way too deep. We are presented as always by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. Use promo code DNVR whenever you sign up. I am joined by a man that looked like every dad at the resort I was at. It's Brennan Vogt.
That's awesome. I was going for Miles Teller and Top Gun. That probably is more accurate.
Is that really what you were going for?
No.
Wait, you were going for cool with that?
Good to have Adam back, right, Eric?
Actually, I gotta give a shout to the homie Vogt. Absolutely held it down, man.
Thanks, bro.
Absolutely. Listened to all of them as I came back on the plane. Loved it.
Appreciate
hanging on
you,
every single second of it. I was hanging on, especially the parts where that asshole talked shit about me nonstop.
You tuned in for a perfect 20-second window that one day. The only time we talked about you all week.
So funny. And then over here, as I mentioned, I do have Eric, but most people call him D-Line.
I moved to refer to Brendan only as Brendan Bahama from this point on.
I don't think it's gonna stick.
I don't think he likes it.
Brendan Bahama. I love it, dude. Tommy Bahama. Out. Brendan Bahama.
In.
There were a lot of things that happened while I was gone, or maybe actually, this is the way the internet works these days. I unplugged from the internet for the most part. I checked my phone at evenings for the most part or what have you, but left it in the safe at the hotel because I wanted to be present.
Nice.
I wanted to be present on vacation. Sometimes when you're away for the internet for like a week, you feel like you missed everything. And you're like, oh my God, how did I miss this story or whatever? And then when you like list them out, you're like, yeah, that's like an hour's worth of things that I missed in a full week. You know, you sift through so much. But nonetheless, I did miss them and I'm excited to be back. One of those, of course, being Josh Kroenke's press conference, which I do want to get into, but I want to wait. Harrison Wind, congratulations on getting married. Congrats on that. Congrats on the honeymoon. That is also over. He'll be back tomorrow joining us and we'll be complete once again. I don't want to talk about it today and give my perspective on it and then have Harrison come tomorrow and I could give his perspective and then we draw it out. Tomorrow, we'll get more into the weeds. I thought you guys did a great job covering it. I thought you guys did even more. Kudos to you for the questions, you specifically, but I thought all of the Nuggets media, there were some really good pressing questions that brought about some very good answers. And I feel like the presser was a success. I know that's a weird thing to say. I feel it's a success in that if you were paying attention, if you were really combing through it, there was a lot of very valuable information. But we'll get into all of that tomorrow a little bit more in depth. Today, we're going to talk in the second segment about some fun stuff. Shortening the season has become a big topic. Maybe adding this other tournament in the middle. Like just trying to change it up. Because why? Because players are missing games and getting hurt and this or that. Is it a good idea? Richard Jefferson presents a very interesting case. We'll play that clip later on about why maybe you shouldn't do it. We'll talk about that. I also want to talk about this idea, and there's a reason to it. There's a method to this. The idea, Stephen A. Smith last week presented that Michael Jordan ruined the NBA. I agree.
Whoa.
I would agree. I know it's crazy. But I don't necessarily agree as in like that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the connectedness of that take, the response that Kevin Durant had, and how it actually forms the way everybody interacts with the NBA right now, and why I think it's actually an important topic. But first, our top story for this fine Monday, the NBA Finals are upon us.
Yeah,
Game 1, the Golden State Warriors look like the Warriors we know, and I don't want to say love, but respect at least for 3 quarters. For almost 3 quarters until all of a sudden the Boston Celtics hammered them. And then in Game 2, with the return of Gary Payton II. Oh my
God, there's no way.
It's going to be a contentious show.
It's not. Honestly, because we're having a joke here because in the private chat, on Monday's show, I think it was, D-Line made a little bit of a comment about Adam seems to think Gary Payton matters, and I told him he thinks he knows things, but I know more than him. He made this whole little comment about how
Make
Adam,
sure you get my face while Adam is saying this.
Yeah, so get him. So he's all Adam, blah blah blah, but this or that. Here's the thing.
I need equal time here.
Okay, go for it. Go for it. Because I don't want this to be. We can do this. Get this out of the way. But I don't want it to be this.
I actually want to get hair for me, please. Can you get the mallet?
No. What I said was when I told you that the Golden State Warriors were back was my big takeaway. It was met with resistance and also refuted by the notion that they were not back because they were missing Gary Payton. not Junior, the second.
Right, Gary
That's
Payton
right.
the second.
And then I watched them hammer the Mavericks.
Yeah.
And so I have a feeling that what's going to happen today is I'm going to be told I'm wrong for being right.
No, you're
the
wrong
Golden
for
State
being
Warriors
you're wrong
are
for being
back.
wrong, but you're also wrong from speaking out of both sides of your mouth, of which I will prove here in just a second.
Whoa.
But here, again, it's not going to be as entertaining to me. Actually, it might be as entertaining, but there's something I really want to get to that I think is really interesting about
Good
this.
to be back in this seat right here.
One of them is that when we talk about, first of all, the context of this, the Warriors are playing against the Grizzlies. Right? And it was Dylan Brooks that took him out and broke his arm.
Yes.
At the exact moment when this happened, the Phoenix Suns were up 2-0 on the Dallas Mavericks and had just beat them by 40 points, in which they undressed Luka Doncic on the court to humiliate him. And so the context of this was, I'm worried that Gary Payton will not be available to guard Devin Booker, which is actually the matchup that I was most interested in. But guess what? The Phoenix Suns, to everybody's surprise, completely vomited all over
That's
themselves
right.
in the most humiliating
That's
way.
right.
And all of a sudden, you're playing the Dallas Mavericks, of which Luka Doncic is too big for Gary Payton anyway. That's not a matchup. And so this is part of it. So it actually didn't end up mattering in that round. But guess what? It sure as hell did matter in games 1 and 2 of this series. Game 1, of course, him unavailable. And in game 2, he was. And it completely changed the texture of that series, in large part because...
Texture. I like that.
Well, in large part because he is able to guard Jason Tatum. Let me explain what happened to you guys. I mean, I know you guys talked about this a little bit, but what happened in game 1? The Warriors shot the ball really well. They played really great. They didn't have a ton of depth, especially with that second unit. You're counting on a Jordan Poole. Well, guess what? The Boston Celtics, they had a plan where they said, we are going to put a body on Jason Tatum, but we're also going to bring Draymond Green and have him as this full help side guy. So Jason Tatum can't get here. And guess what? We're vulnerable to kickouts. Well, you get kickouts to Al Horford, you get kickouts to Derek White, and you also get a strategy that says, hey, we're going to actually just play through these guys and use Jason Tatum as a decoy. He's going to suck the defense over here, and let's see what happens. And did those guys shoot ridiculously hot, the hottest of their career?
97%?
Yeah, yes, they did. But guess what? What was it? 32 of the 35 three-pointers that the Celtics took in that game were considered wide open according to the tracking data. So did they shoot the hottest ever? Yes. But was that the vulnerability that the Warriors were forced to choose, the poison they were forced to choose because they didn't have their defenders on there?
The Celtics were up, by the way, the Suns were up by 12, or Warriors were up by 12 points after the third.
Yeah.
They're like,
I don't think I thought it was 9 after the third because they were up like 18.
Yes.
Until what happened? They brought the second unit in.
Yes.
It started in the third quarter.
And Andre Iguodala was part of that, by the way.
Sure, of course. Guess what? He's not as good as Gary Payton.
Yes, but then the Celtics unleashed the most absurd, like unreplaceable, unreplicable assault I've ever seen with Al Horford, Marcus Smart, and Derek White.
Yeah.
If you're saying that Gary Payton Jr. the second is going to cover all of those guys.
No, he's not, but you're not listening. The point is, no, I'm being serious about this.
I know you're being serious.
Your defense has to be compromised when you say, I mean, people do this to Jokic all the time, right? Because Jason Tatum, we were joking about this, right? About people were like, oh man, I know he only shot 3 of 16, but what a great game because he had a career high 13 assists. Because what happens sometimes when teams do this to Jokic? And it happened, by the way, in the Clippers series, where Jokic numbers were only like 29 points per game or 26 points per game or whatever. But guess what? He sat there and like, oh, you guys are going to send 2 bodies at me? This is the easiest food I've ever eaten in my life, and I just distribute. And it was a great game plan. What happened in the second game was they got him back. And first of all, kudos to Gary Payton for playing through this. He has a broken arm. That's a pretty impressive, and who knows if he'll hold up for the rest of the series. But to come back and play through this is impressive. But what happened was they said, okay, we overcorrected in game 1. We put too much attention to him. Now we have a guy that we feel, we're not sure, but we feel he can actually guard him one-on-one. We feel that if we put him on there, we don't have to compromise our defense. So we're not going to give them open shots. We're not even going to leave the door open that maybe Derek White and Al Horford make wide open threes. We're not going to allow that to happen. And guess what? What was Jason Tatum plus minus in game 2? Do you remember off the top of your head? I'm guessing you do.
-36.
There it is. Minus 36.
The worst, right? The single worst.
It's one of the worst we've had. Is it the worst in finals
history? It's
history?
worst in finals history.
Oh my.
So a couple people sent that to me last night.
So he not only goes from having a game in which everyone credits him for his career high assist and where he's an impact player just by accepting a role that's going to use him as a decoy, but all of a sudden he has the worst plus minus in history. And here's why I think this is really important. Actually, there's a couple of reasons why. Gary Payton II, as Eric likes to point out, is not the best player on their team. He's not the second best player. He's not the third, and he's probably not the fourth best player. He's probably not the fifth best player.
Keep going.
Well, no, but here's why this is so fascinating. The Athletic had a great write-up last week. Another thing I read on the way home, and I want to read you guys the first two paragraphs of this article because I thought it was so great. So here, this is about the Warriors and how they are set up, and it was such a great. This is by Marcus Thompson and Anthony Slater, and I have to give them credit.
They're great.
Very, very, very well reported story, but not just well reported. They told the story in a great way because what they did is they used the selection of Gary Payton to the last roster spot this year to show how their front office is set up and how their decision-making works. And he starts like this. He says, preseason Los Angeles, an overall meaningless night to the viewing public in what then was known as Staples Center, but the stakes were high in regard to the Warriors' 15th and final roster spot. The decision was between Avery Bradley and Gary Payton II. The franchise legends, he's referring to Draymond Green and Steph Curry, preferred Bradley, the known commodity. The front office wanted Payton, a gem they felt they discovered. There was also a third option. Neither. Leaving the spot open would save millions in luxury tax penalties. The internal debates were lively. The competition tilted Bradley's direction when Payton had hernia surgery a month before training camp and wasn't able to get on the court. So he's missing training camp. This was his chance. Remember, Gary Payton has not been around. He hasn't proven himself. He's trying to get the last roster spot, essentially. He gets a hernia. He was running out of time to win a spot. To secure an NBA job, Payton needed to make a statement. He convinced the training staff he was good enough to play in this preseason game. He entered late in the first quarter, had a putback dunk, a layup within the first 121 seconds on the court, 2 more dunks, then a block, a steal. 11 minutes, and he put up all of that. And at one point, Steph Curry stood up after a putback block, and he looks at Bob Myers. He basically gives him the okay, I see. You guys know what you're talking about. And he had won him over. The 15th spot on the roster. So you can joke about this. We can keep going down the list. Literally the last guy in terms of importance when they were assembling the roster.
Yes.
Literally the most important player
why are
in
we
game
talking
two.
about him being the linchpin of the Golden State Warriors' success?
Because this is what I'm saying, is when you get to a certain level, what you're doing is the tautology of saying, well, Steph Curry is the reason they won. Of course, he was brilliant. When you get to a certain level, if you just tell, this is you tell a high schooler, if you work hard, you can do anything you want. Okay, that's good. That's a good, baseline foundational truth. But if once you get up to the top CEOs in the world, they're competing on the top stage, all of a sudden it's no longer just, hey, work hard, man. That's the key to making it the best company. These other margins start to matter. You're in the NBA Finals. You need to have guys that can guard, that don't compromise your defense so that you can allow the Steph Currys of the world. You can allow the Jordan Pooles of the world to do their thing and not be compromised. And that was the 15th spot on the roster, and it made all the difference.
So I don't understand how I said this after the first round of the playoffs that the Warriors were back, and we've not had Gary Payton Jr. be part of this, but somehow it only matters now.
First of all, he was part of the first round. He was part of
How is it that the Warriors were able to trudge through without
Who did they trudge through? They made it through 1.5 series.
Yes.
They made it through 1.5 series playoffs, in which one of the teams lost their best player, and the other one was the Dallas Mavericks. Here's the point. I didn't say that
in years past it's Sean
You
Livingston.
want to make this a me and you thing. I'm trying to tell you that this is actually more interesting on a basketball building thing. So we can do this if you want. But I'm telling you
I don't want to do this.
But here's the point, Eric. You told the PHNX guys when PJ Dozier wasn't available in the series that he would have made an impact because he was the best perimeter defender. Is he the best player? Is he the second best player, the third, fourth, fifth? No.
But you know who would have made a bigger impact is Jamal Murray.
No shit. Of course, Steph Curry makes a big impact on him too. What I'm saying is teams have guys on their roster, and sometimes they are only bit players, and they make a huge impact because they give you the versatility for specific matchups. That's what Gary Payton provided them, and should they have played a Devin Booker, Chris Paul combo, they would have needed somebody to guard those guys. They didn't. They didn't need him, thankfully, in that one. They do need him against the Boston Celtics, and he made an enormous impact in that one.
They won by 25 last night. Adam.
What's that?
They won by 25 points.
And what was his plus minus on that one?
Plus
24, I think it was. It was incredible. And by the way, they got outscored by 9 points in the first half when he wasn't on the court.
Attributing the Warriors' success last night to Gary Payton Jr.?
Not to him solely. What I'm saying is it is important to recognize that when a team builds, all of the pieces matter.
Listen, I get it. However, I've watched the Warriors build around those three guys with a whole roster of people. It's been Festus Ezeli. It's been... I can't even remember names of these guys. Over and over, they're just different guys. It's just a revolving door of bit players. Yes, they're all important because those guys can't be on the court the entire game. You have to have guys that are competent, but they're starting
No.
far ahead of their competition that the amount of wiggle room you have with the bit player that you choose, if you have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, now Jordan Poole,
but you're
now
arguing
Otto
against
Porter.
nobody here. If you're saying that Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, those guys are so great that the margin for error is small, of course, but the margin of error matters, and that was a decision that happened at the last minute that here we are 9 months later that is making an enormous impact. And the reason I think this is interesting, Vogt, we talk so often about Bones Highland and about, like, is he a starter for this team? Is he a closer? Is this or that? And we always say, yes, he's going to be this, or no, he's not a starter, but he can be a sixth man. Here's the thing. I don't think that's the right way to look at it. Jokic is a starter and closer, full stop, every game. Jamal Murray, same thing. Michael Porter, I think, same thing, maybe 95%, but I feel pretty good about it. You start to get into these other ones, there might be a series where Bones Highland is the guy that it's like, no, we're closing. A la the Denver Nuggets series, where they said they don't have anybody to guard Jordan Poole. We put that out there. We're vulnerable, but doesn't matter. We're not going to get killed. We're just going to score so many points. Bones Highland might be that guy. They need to find the PJ Dozier or Gary Payton. And by the way, it might actually be Gary Payton. He's actually a candidate for this. So it's kind of funny that you're disparaging him. It actually might be him that you get into a...
I'm not disparaging him.
You're disparaging the fact that he could make the difference between the Nuggets winning a title or not.
What I said was, I know the Warriors are back, and you said, I don't think you're paying attention because they lost Gary Payton Jr. And then all they did was win every series, and they're still back. They have him or they don't have him. They're better with him.
I think the NBA is very funny in this way, and that I honestly think both of you are right, and I think both of you can be proved right or wrong within any given quarter, any given possession, right? Now, when you have guys like Jokic and LeBron, you can cover up your 15th and 14th spots on the roster, right? There are teams, but
I don't know if you can though anymore, Vogt. That's my point.
I mean, look, when I say guys like Jokic and LeBron, I'm talking about like two of the 10 best players that have ever lived. So like, good luck finding them. But look, I do think this Warriors team could win this series without Gary Payton. I do.
You do?
Absolutely. I do. Are their chances better with him? Of course. Could Steph and Klay and Draymond, I mean, I don't think Klay's not that guy right now, but could they in theory cover up some of that? I do. I think they could. Much the same way Porter and Murray could have made a lot of these margin signings look much better. But I still think you're right. I mean, I still think it matters to have Gary Payton. Matchups crop up. I just think the NBA is kind of funny in this way, in that any given night, based like through confirmation bias, either one of you could feel absolutely correct. That is what's interesting to me about the Celtics, though. I will give them credit in that way. I think Jason Tatum's a very good player. As far as your best players go, best players go, I don't think he's that good. But the Celtics are here because they've nailed so many of these little decisions. Also, finally, I will also say, I think the Warriors overcompensated with or without Payton in game one. Like, that was a weird game plan. Jason Tatum is very good. He's not that good. Why are you letting him have 13 assists?
Vogt's back after
you don't
one.
Have to like.
After one
you don't
loss,
need to soft double Jason Tatum the whole game. He's hit two pointers. He's hit two pointers.
Yeah.
Like, just he's gonna take bad shots and bail you out anyway. You don't have to leave four people wide open. But I do think, like, on any given night, I could throw a drink back, laugh, and agree with Eric, or I could zoom in on a matchup and agree with Adam. Different teams have different routes to getting there, and some teams are going to be able to build this beautiful 1 through 15 thing. Some teams are just going to say, LeBron, carry us home. What I appreciate about the Warriors is how they didn't just rest on their laurels of, we got the talented guys. Let's make sure we're doing our due diligence and making sure that we're nailing all of these little decisions. So it's Steph plus us. Yeah. And the result is not just that first window, but here the Warriors are back again after all of this.
Gary Payton cost an enormous amount of money when you can factor in all of the luxury tax penalties. So when these guys got in a room and said, like, is he going to make a difference? They feel like, absolutely, it's worth this ridiculous investment for a player that might not even play at all, because it's hard to remember that now, but at the start of the season, that wasn't a certainty. And here's the thing that's most important. When I look at, I thought this was true of the Phoenix Suns. The playoffs kind of exposed that was not true of them. But when I look at the Boston Celtics and I look at the Warriors, they're so versatile. They could go through a series and not play, to your point, a Gary Payton. They could also go through a series and probably not play Andre Iguodala at all, or Otto Porter as much, or Nemanja Bjelica. Like, they just have guys that's like, this is what we need. We have a piece for that. Let's pull it in. And I think that's when we're talking about team building with the Nuggets. First of all, Gary Payton might be a name that Denver looks at. Like, who knows? Maybe Gary Payton is the guy for Denver.
It'd be hilarious if Eric is like full team. I know you're not anti him.
I'm not even anti-Gary
I'm just
Payton.
saying it'd be hilarious if.
No, it'd be
But you have to have the
It'd be
ability to go
hilarious
to
if
it.
we got Jason Tatum. That would be hilarious.
Yeah, so funny.
But my point is that you have to be able to win, especially in the Western Conference where there's so many good teams. And honestly, it's probably going to be in both conferences going forward. There's just too many good teams, and they're too different. That you have to be able to say, our strengths are Jokic, Murray, Porter.
Yep.
But sometimes we can go even more offense and throw Bones out there, and maybe if it's Will Barton or somebody else like that, and like, you know what, this team, they can't score, so we're just going to put our great offense out on the court and do this. Or maybe you need to put the defense out there, and it is a Gary Payton, and maybe Michael Porter comes off for more minutes than you think because we're putting out another big defensive wing. You have to have the ability to do that, and that's what Gary Payton represents. And to me, he is essential in this series. Could they win without him? Sure. But the margin to me is actually way more. It's not a little one in this specific series.
Fair enough.
Yes, that most definitely. If the point is more versatility makes you more dangerous, the answer is yes. Of course, I agree with you 1,000,000%. Is the question: are the Warriors back? They can't be considered back because Gary.
You made
Payton
this
is
too
hurt.
much into a you versus me thing, and it's less interesting.
What are you
this
talking
way.
about? I made it into a you versus me question. That is the foundation of this: is whether or not the Warriors are able to get this done with or without Gary Payton. Are the Warriors a continuation of the dynastical Warriors that we saw years ago? My contention is absolutely yes.
Steph and Jokic are so similar, though, in this one way. But what you're talking about is Jokic gets you 90% of the way there. Steph gets you 90% of the way there.
Yes.
Like, they're so good. But the thing is that the thing about Gary Payton is he's actually not that versatile himself.
Sure.
But him as an idea makes
of
the
the
team.
roster.
So he's a guy like, and this is what I think Denver needs is they might need a guy. Austin Rivers was this guy, by the way, for them. Like, Austin Rivers is kind of a, he's not that great, but a lot of things, but he's really good at defense and he can fill in. And they might just need that. They might need the great shooter, but then they also need the lengthy defender. Then they need the small forward defender.
So taking all of this and applying it to Denver, you know, like Jokic is enough to put. Like, are you contending year in and year out? Yes. Could they go and get one with Jokic?
Yeah.
Even in a year like last year where people aren't thrilled with the little signings, I think the answer is yes. But the difference between can we maybe get one this year,
right,
and what the Warriors have turned into since Steph got there are little things like that.
Yep.
And that's what's kept them in that spot despite everything they've been through. And those are the things I don't have a ton of faith in for the Nuggets, or at least we've seen no signs of so far. I still think that Jokic ride can get them across the finish line, but you know, is Stan gonna say let's pony up in the repeater tax for that 15th guy because it will make the difference this year? I mean, those are the types of decisions that you have to give Golden State credit for.
One example of this decision, I mean, we just talked about how much money Gary Payton ended up costing them, like a ton of money in luxury tax payments. Davon Reed wasn't added to the roster.
That's a good point.
Davon Reed wasn't. Could you have bought out one player? Could you have bought out a Facu and then added Davon Reed? We talked about the reasons we wouldn't. And I was even defensive of this, but part of me looks at it and goes, Davon Reed, Gary Payton. Gary Payton had a full year and he developed into a better player, no questions asked. But maybe Davon Reed, the investment should have been there in the same way to where he was a guy that, hey, maybe he does guard Jordan Poole better than whatever it was Denver did.
Maybe it
But
would
the,
have
but
been,
the difference, but the point is like if you're talking about going into the repeater tax, like
Yeah.
you want to go in, your first step needs to be one that is actually made to actually win a title. Like they're not going to win a title with Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray. Just
That's
full
true.
stop.
Last year,
there's no reason to start that clock until it's actually valuable.
But there were ways they could have kept him in the playoff
For
roster
sure, but
and
like-
not got into the tax.
Yeah, but like I mean, like you know,
it's not that big of a deal. I'm just saying that these margins do add up. You're right that Denver's not in a moment where it was necessarily matter.
No.
Maybe Golden State wouldn't have done this in a different moment. I'm just saying that at some point they do matter, and it could be the difference between Davon Reed could be the difference between. He's not going to be the difference between 50 and 60 wins, but he might be the difference between Game 2.
No
a win
question.
or a loss in a conference finals.
No
All right, we got to
question.
hit a break, guys. We're
No
too late.
question.
Let's hit a
Oh,
break
man.
on the other side. We'll
I actually
continue
thought that was good.
debating thing. It was great stuff, but
I still have more to say.
we
but
have
that's
bills
fine.
to play.
I forgot.
It's good to be back.
Back
Back and yelling at each other.
Yeah. You know what's really cool about Evoca TV?
Everything.
Yeah,
All of it.
they have services like Altitude Sports, AT&T. If you want to watch your favorite Colorado sports teams and you haven't been able to because of the piss fight between some billionaires, you can now, thanks to our homies at Evoca.
Let's go.
They also have a DNVR channel, which is pretty cool. So you can see Adam and Eric argue with each other
Also, like,
on your TV.
Do what you can to take away the power of Comcast. Comcast has too much power, and it's because we all pay them.
Yeah, a lot of talk about that streaming service, that Neston one. That's pretty expensive. You know what's cheaper? Evoca. We've got a nice option for you. You can get your Avs, you can get your Nuggets, and you can get DNVR. How do you get it, though? You go to evoca.tv/DNVR. That's evoca.tv/DNVR. Then use the promo code DNVR. You'll get $10 off your first 3 months. That's only $50 per month for the first 3 months, plus that receiver. Of course, Evoca TV, they get the people going. They get your teams on your TV. I have been starting my mornings with I know it's a scary way for me to start an ad read, but this one is normal. I'm talking about Athletic Greens.
Let's go. Me and you both, buddy.
I love Athletic Greens. I got that. It came with a little bottle.
Hell yeah,
so I can
dude.
measure out my
Shake
12
it
ounces
up.
of cold water with my 1 scoop is all I need to get the nutrients, the greens in my body to start my day right. I have it before I eat. Then I work out. That second part's a lie. The first part's true. And it's my favorite way to start the day. I do it every day. 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source, superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens, and other words that I don't really know, but they sound like they're good for me. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/nuggets, athleticgreens.com/nuggets, to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. You think these fingernails, like
Dude!
you think I came
Oh
out
my
the
God,
womb this
look at
shiny?
that.
Dude,
No
I'm telling
way.
you, listen, I don't know if
Some kids are born without
Have you
nails.
ever
That's
have the
really
two of you
weird.
ever been on like a regimented multivitamin regiment?
No.
I am now.
I've not ever done it before in my life. I almost looked at vitamins as sort of pseudoscience in a way. Like you just take them. I've been taking Athletic Greens now very consistently for
Yeah.
many months,
Let me
and
see
I
your
gotta
nails.
say, like I'm noted, like my body is like working better.
Really?
You just feel
For real,
better.
my skin. I'll let you feel that.
Wow.
afterwards. Very soft. My hair very soft. My nails strong.
Yes.
I'm telling you, like I'm like, oh right, the building blocks of the human body are actually valuable to the human body. It's very real.
All right, great read, but both of you guys actually, we're great to chime in there. Do you want to put any?
You don't have any testimonials?
Sheila stole mine.
Okay. That
She
sounds
stole-
right,
she
actually.
stole mine.
How's she
takes
doing
it
though?
every
She
day.
probably
She
helped
loves
us
it.
out.
She
Yeah.
also swears by
Her
it.
nails are great.
She's like, you should order some of your own now. And I'm like, that was
Yeah, well,
mine that
I
I
did.
got. I did. You took it. All right. What do you want? Is there anything else that you want to kind of put a bow on here?
All I want to say is, you're right, Adam. You are right. You're completely right. Like every player on the roster matters. But all I know is that the bit players matter, but they don't matter unless the top talent is there, and the top talent is
course. I
functioning.
mean, yeah.
That is the only thing that matters. Sadly, in
Wait,
the
what?
NBA.
No, I disagree with this though. I'm
I
telling you,
don't-
this was definitely true
And
to
we're
me
back.
of like 2005 when
Yeah,
there
with
was
LeBron
like
James and
4
Kyrie
good players
Irving.
in the league, and then there was a
Yes.
bunch of like highly paid guys that didn't care about the sport at all. I just think we're past that, man. There's too many good players now. Every team is going to have going forward. If the Nuggets are going to win a title, they're going to play against 2 or 3 great teams.
I agree.
And I'm not saying it will definitely come down to the margins, but the margins are going to tilt these things in one direction or the other. And maybe I don't want to count on Vogt to have to score 50 every night.
No, but
they'll probably have to do it once or twice in the series.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's why you have Jamal Murray that scores 50 points in multiple. That's what propelled us to the Western Conference Finals. And
You know what? You know why the Nuggets beat the Blazers though? I mean, you could distill it down. The Austin
Facu.
Rivers game.
Oh, that's right.
no, you have like more. This is, but it doesn't. It doesn't mean it's Austin Rivers. It means that somebody else eventually has to step up in some capacity where there is a deficit or where there's an opening. Like, I watched the Warriors all year played with Gary Payton Jr. and they
Yeah,
got
they were
what were
awesome.
the 6th seed, the 4th seed. Like,
I mean, they
and
had
it wasn't
injuries to a lot of players.
Yeah,
throughout
but it
the
wasn't
course of the
until
year.
Klay Thompson came back that it like really unlocked who they are, and like now you start to see, even though he's not even playing well, there's just something about like the intangible part of sports where just the confidence that those guys together are able to bring to the court, like somehow becomes greater than the sum of the parts. Like they're just.
Do you
they have such-
do you at least agree with the portion of this that said that when we talk about Bones and like, well, I don't know because he doesn't provide the defense. If you have Jamal, like, does Bones provide these? But there might be a series where it's like you're
Yes.
going up against a weak backcourt.
No question.
And it's like, guess what? We can play them. And that's actually that's the lineup we play all the time. A la Jordan Poole. Like, Jordan Poole, he had who did he have going against Monte Morris, Will Barton? They were like, you know what, Jordan Poole can't guard, but Barton and Monte aren't going to beat us. So we'll just bludgeon them. And I think the Nuggets could have a series like that, maybe 2, maybe 3 series like that, where they roll out a Bones Murray backcourt for large portions of it, and they're yeah, they can't punish that.
All right, listen, I'm completely with you. I just know that if the Nuggets start hitting on the cylinders of Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., and Jamal Murray, like good luck, good night. Then you have Aaron Gordon in there to sort of like do the role that Kevon Looney is, where suddenly they need somebody to go inside.
You know, he's got to be the Andrew Wiggins.
Could be. Point being, like, they have the what makes the Warriors, in my opinion, so unbeatable. It's just the sheer number of ways they have to beat you.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay.
By the way, I think the Celtics have a lot of this too. I mean, maybe
they do
less loud. It's not like as powerful of a hammer, but it's still as versatile.
Well, because it just happens on the other side of the ball. So it's just
really
sort of a harder thing to digest.
They have so many good defenders.
Defensively,
they have like a lot
but
of
the
good
Warriors
defenders.
last night had like 15. They got 15 turnovers. They were stealing the ball left and right from the Boston Celtics. They're just such a dynamic.
Yeah, he's
squad.
a very disruptive defender in addition to being a lockdown one.
and
we got to move on. We got to move on.
Goddamn back. The Warriors are back.
You guys are both missing the point.
Tatum sucks.
Yeah, I can't wait till I give him Finals MVP.
Minus 36, baby.
I mean, the things it would take for him to be Finals MVP at this point would be like.
What do you mean? They just have to win. Everyone's going to do it anyway.
It's going to be the lamest thing ever.
I loved that at halftime last night. Let's revisit how good Tatum actually was in Game 1. 3 for 17.
What is he for the series now? Shooting?
That's a good point. I don't know.
It's like 6 of 35 or something.
If not for those 3-point shots, I mean, he was bad. Missing layups.
Dude, I'm serious. He's actually he's so good. He's just not the best version of himself. And I know he's only 19, but he's only 23.
He's only 19.
Which is actually so upsetting because he's so young. But you're just like, dude, what is that shot?
All right. Can we play? I want to play an extended clip here. You guys got to hang with me. Richard Jefferson had. Should we play the clip or should I just explain what he said? I guess I can just explain what he said.
Yeah, you can probably do it better than he did.
Yeah, he went into an impassioned. Sorry, Kale, I had you. Kale was so excited to be able to do this. Richard Jefferson over the weekend he went on this long rant because the NBA is trying to look at. Adam Silver did his big speech, every year he does right before the finals, where he kind of the state of the union basically of the NBA. And one of the things is he talked about shortening the season. He talked about the midseason tournament and changing the way they operate. And I loved what Richard Jefferson said, who, by the way, Richard Jefferson was a little bit of an Iron Man in that he played most of his games.
That's real.
He lasted a long time.
Yeah.
And he said, look, the NBA season, regular season, one of the things that's different about even the European season, the different for the NBA is they play 82 games. It's a marathon. And then at the end of the marathon, it's a sprint. So you actually have to run a marathon, and then you have to run a sprint. And guess what? That's part of why the NBA has the greatest athletes in the world, is because it requires so much pressure on your body, so much sacrifice. And because of this, they've grown the sport, and they've done all this and that. And they said, would the games be more competitive if we reduced it down to 60 or this or that? He's like, maybe, but do we lose something of the competition? And then his other part here was, if we do this, are you telling me players aren't going to still sit out? Because if you reduce it to 65 games, some scientist is going to come in and say, yeah, but it's better if you only play 55. And we're still going to be in the same GD spot that we're in right now. I got to say, man, I think our Richard Jefferson hasn't always been my favorite analyst.
No.
He's had some great takes lately, though. I've enjoyed it. He's had a couple bangers lately, and this is one of them where I am with him. I'm not necessarily saying they shouldn't shorten the season. We'll talk about why he may or may not be right. But I think his point about trying to perfect things in this way, I don't think is possible. I actually think it's kind of dumb.
Yes, you're probably right that once you start shortening these games, I'm sure the science does say that's better. The science probably also says it's better to not play at all.
Definitely
it's bad. It's bad for your joints to play basketball. Do you know that?
Yeah. Really bad.
I'm curious, when Nicholas says there the biggest issue is not how long it is, but how unbalanced it is. I'm curious what you mean by that. Do you mean scheduling and the back-to-backs, or I'm curious. Feel free to elaborate. But I think he's on to something there. I do. There's just the thing about the NBA is we're always talking about it as if we're all on the same page in terms of agendas, and we're not. Like, Richard's a player. So Richard is thinking about this from the pride standpoint of a former athlete and competition.
Sure.
Now, a commissioner of this league is thinking about an entertainment business, and he also has to balance this with, like, if a shorter season means less injuries and it means the stars are available more, isn't that a better product? Like, that's a different conversation than what Richard is sort of having. So,
but he had that conversation too, because he's saying like, and I mean, you know this, Vogt. What's a realistic number? First of all, we're not going to shorten it to 40 games. So we're really talking about, are we going to shorten it to 75 to 70? And if we said 70 games, are you telling me that Anthony Davis isn't going to still rest another 5 games?
That's true.
Maybe another 10?
I mean, I don't feel like it needs to change. I don't. I guess I'm just trying to understand that when we have these sort of conversations, I don't know if everyone has the same goals or perspective on it.
I also don't know, Eric, maybe you can appreciate this. One of the perspectives I take is that we always feel like we have to solve things. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know, this is a sport. It's entertainment, and there's flaws to it, but it is entertaining. Yep. What you need is players to play. And maybe one of the solutions is tying your salary to like you are paid. It's prorated through a full season minus injuries or this. I mean, it gets a messy in there too. But I do wonder if part of it is like, hey, man, we know it's hard. We know a back-to-back you're probably not going to win or this or that. But this is what we do, and this is how we're going to do it.
I hate back-to-backs more than anything in the world. Like, they, to me, are like it's the most unfair thing in sports is when somebody has to travel a back-to-back to come into, especially like Denver. I mean, it's like almost a guaranteed loss. But my main feeling on all of this is that I love watching basketball.
Right.
There's so often the NBA and all of these sports
but
leagues act as though we are here for them as opposed to them being here for us.
Right.
It is so obnoxious to me that the way that we go about, we're like, how can we make these players' lives go from 1 million times better than ours, then 10 bazillion times better than ours? Like, I'm not worried about the life of an NBA player. I'm just not like, other than like the way that I'm concerned about every other single human being on earth. Like nobody, I'm just saying, like, they have spent their entire lives perfecting their craft, perfecting their bodies. Like, this is the life that they are signed up to be a part of. And I don't understand like why we're so eager to have them not play basketball.
Yeah.
I also wonder.
I don't get it. Like, play basketball.
How much of this conversation
This is not shut up and dribble, by the way. Not that.
Yeah. Is exacerbated.
You can talk all you want.
By just these last 2 seasons being COVID seasons, so there were more guys out and more games where it's like, who is that guy? Like, I follow basketball, but I'm on Google right now.
Dude,
there's a lot of that, and part of me wants to push back on this whole conversation in that when that isn't going on, I actually don't think players sit that much. Like, I know Kawhi did a lot, but he had like
it's high-profile ones. Yeah,
he had a health issue, but James Harden, famous for going super hard in the regular season. Giannis never takes a night off. LeBron played 82 games in like basketball year 2000. I think most of these guys compete night in and night out. I do. I actually think this is a conversation that's had more in these sets and these environments than it actually applies to the game itself. That's my.
I think that's a good take.
All I know is that there's never a game that we watch where I'm like, ugh, I wish I didn't watch that. Like, every night that there's a game, I'm like, dope, this is going to be great. I can't wait to watch Jokic play basketball.
One of the I'm 1,000% with you, and I do think this is one of those things where like all of the people that talk about sports in the most annoying ways, like online or this or that, if they got what they want, they just like very quickly be like, man, this sucks. So there's not a game till Friday? Like, hold on, what did I do to myself? I screwed myself over big time.
Guys, actually, no game tonight. He's having a tough one, so we're just going to move it to tomorrow, and we'll play tomorrow.
That's what it is the high-profile, like Simmons, Kyrie's of the world over there.
I actually love the aspect that you're mentioning that Richard Jefferson brought up. Like, part of the competition is the attrition.
Yep.
Like, that's part of being the best in the world is, like, being able to stay involved and, like,
physically and mentally ready.
I mean, it should be. I mean, conditions shouldn't always be perfect. They just simply shouldn't be. Like, to be the best, you have to sort of rise above all things that are thrown at you. It is a long-form tournament.
Jokic believes this wholeheartedly.
Absolutely believes this, and perhaps our views are warped by the fact that we
have
watch
the toughest MFer on earth.
guy on earth play every game that never complains, refuses to sit out because it becomes a point of pride. Like, I wish every NBA player would feel that way and like show that it's not only about the skill, but it's about the strength of your composition, your constitution, who you are. Like, I mean, I get it. Like, I don't want to work today. I don't want to be here right now. But sometimes you just got to suit up and do it.
NBA fans, maybe less so than every other fans, don't see ourselves as observers of the sport, but somehow these like participants of like, we're all playing GM and we're all playing commissioner, and we're like, I know how to fix this, guys. Right. Like it's like it doesn't matter. That's like, none of this, we're not. Nobody's listening to us. One of my movies I always recommend to people is Human Nature. You guys ever seen? Remember Charlie Kaufman's first ever movie? But there's one of the characters is trying to teach table manners to mice. Because as he explains it, he's like, because if I can teach manners to mice, I could teach them to people. And if I could teach them to people, I might make the world safer. And it's the funniest like logic. But that's how people talk about basketball. Like, we might be able to make it safer.
Right.
And you're like,
so true.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I guess.
You mean like, okay.
It's so true. The logical end of this is just don't play anymore.
Just don't
and
play.
We should all stop risking
6 games.
Our
They're all 15 minutes long. There's only 5 guys total on the team. Yeah, it's really dumb.
How would you fix the NBA? I'll tell you how I would fix the NBA. I would change the discourse. The discourse to me is I would get adults in charge of the NBA, and I would advertise, and I would
Eric, basketball fascist.
I cannot stand the way the NBA talks about itself. If you watch,
it really does.
If you watch shows
job.
devoted to the NBA as opposed to shows devoted to any other sports league, the NBA is the one that is just like most juvenile, most like petulant, most based in memes and insults.
The most false too, though.
It's the most false. It's like not the NBA has been reduced to a meme. Is the problem.
It's definitely the easiest sport to pretend you know what you're talking about. It just in terms of
I don't know about that. I think football might be.
In terms of the way you will be accepted with open arms into the community, in my opinion.
Maybe. Football's right there, though, man. I'm telling you. Baseball's the one that you can't. Like, you can prove it.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right, let's take a break on the other side. More on how we talk about the game, but
let's go.
In an interesting way.
But when we do it, it's cool. Oh, wait, we're doing a break?
So cool.
Yeah, crap. Sorry, guys.
Was that not clear when I was?
I stopped listening to you.
Setup there, the whole like part
listening to you. One thing that's really cool about Colorado is Glendale, and one thing you probably didn't know about Glendale is that it's Rugbyville, USA.
Let's freaking go.
That's real though. It's the epicenter of rugby culture in the United States. A growing culture, a growing game. And you can tap in thanks to the American Raptors.
By the way, we're probably going to do like a Raptors tailgate here in the next, 2 months, man. It's going to be fun.
Well, I'll tell you right now, it's the place to be from June 11th to June 18th. Join us as 4 rugby teams from across North and South America clash on the pitch. It's called the pitch, Eric. Argentina and Uruguay take on the American Raptors.
Who are we going for?
Uruguay.
Oh, we're going for the Raptors. Okay. I thought they were playing each other.
Is Faku playing? Take on the American Raptors and Vancouver Ravens in this 2-weekend international rugby event. Adult tickets are $10 and kids 12 and under are free. For tickets and match information, go to infinitypark@glendale.com. Experience rugby at its finest. And if you are already in love with the game or you catch a little taste, check out that DNVR Rugby podcast hosted by Colton Strickler. He does a great job of speaking to both the layman's and the diehards. Check them out, DNVR Rugby podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
Love it. Are we back?
We're back. Wait, are we? I don't think I only did one. Nope, I did. I only did one. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is doing something. New customers can probably make a bunch of money. Let's figure out exactly what the deal is once I find the... yeah, we're there. DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers can bet any $5 NBA bet and get $150 in free bets instantly. If you're looking to turn another small bet into a big payday during the NBA Finals, you can do that with DraftKings same-game parlays. The more legs you add, the more money you can win. Like total points, money line, you could fade Tatum points. You could do a lot of things you could do. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use
taking abs, closeout, baby.
Or make any $5 bet during the NBA Finals and get $150 bets in free bets instantly. That's promo code DNVR only at DraftKings Sportsbook. That's an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older. Colorado, only new customers. Only minimum $5 deposit. Restrictions do apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
All right, now we're back for this final segment here. By the way, I brought my Kill McCarr jersey tonight, Eric. I'll tell you that. So
good.
Now you'll be happy for me.
Dude,
okay?
Adam keeps showing up to Avs watch
I
events
did it one time,
having purchased a $300 jersey, jerseyless.
It's hot. It's like it's
It
called
is
a
hot.
sweater.
It's a sweater.
So and I didn't know how cool the bar would be. Very cool. It was like surprisingly cool. I was
Everybody
very
else
happy
is
with
wearing
that.
that. If I
Very
had
well.
one, I'd wear it. I was wearing a sweatshirt.
You want to borrow mine?
Maybe.
All right, here we go. Final segment, and I want to talk about. You can pull it up now. I think that was just a tweet I sent you there, Kelsey. You can kind of pull it up. Stephen A. Smith went on this rant. Again, was media talking about many media, but I think it's a great topic. Kudos to Stephen A. for coming up with it, and Kevin Durant for inserting himself into the conversation. Where Stephen A. says that he thinks that Michael Jordan ruined the NBA because because Michael was so great, which I think is partially true. I think Jordan's the greatest player that I've ever watched, one or two, him and LeBron, but. He was so good, but I think it is less about how great he was and more that he came around at the exact right time when marketing really took off at the Nike Gatorade level and McDonald's level, and they just told us that it was all because of him, and it changed the narrative. Like before that, he brings up the point Magic and Larry, and Magic passed and Larry passed, and there was the team, and look at how these guys work together, and the team is greater than the whole. We got rid of that, and for 20 years we've had MVP conversations every single game because that's all that matters is what's the one individual. As Eric would tell you, it has nothing to do with any of the supporting cast. They don't matter at all. It's all the individual. That's Eric's point.
Unbelievable.
Big market deal.
Big market D-line over here.
And then right and wrong.
But here's part of what I like is KD claps back at him. He says, "My theory is that guys like Steven, Skip, and Shannon have changed the game for the worse. Players like did I get this right? Players like Steven and Michael can only push the game forward. Stephen and Michael. So here's one of the things that's interesting to me about this. I've said maybe 4 or 5 months ago that KD somehow lost Game 7 of a playoff series last year and took no strays. Rightfully so. He played great. He played brilliantly. And I was like, hopefully we're finally beyond the point where we slander athletes for this. That maybe
in the NBA,
maybe that was only a LeBron thing, and now that LeBron's gone, like we just can appreciate these guys. KD has found himself on the wrong side of everything since that, including this. To me, I'm like, KD, why are you just stepping in everything right now? He's just like trying to insert himself in a way that like it's not lost on me that he left the Warriors. They replaced him with Poole, and they're like just as good. Like this is like part of me is thinking he's wrong. But here's part of the thing. I do agree with him. It's part of what I hate. Jordan was great. He was incredible. He had great teammates that bought in, a great coach that got those teammates to buy in. He had great running mates. And this is the story of every team that's ever won. And I do think that this is why I hate the MVP conversation. It frames basketball specifically in a way that's not the way you're actually supposed to frame it. MVPs are great. I'm not trying to say we shouldn't have them, but Yoke's going to stop winning MVPs when we're ready to win titles, right? Because then finally the team will be good enough. So I kind of like this take that we've been so preoccupied, in the media in particular, and the Stephen A's of the world have been so preoccupied with who's best that they forgot what basketball is actually what makes it most interesting.
See, I agree. The counterpoint is that the way that Michael Jordan is discussed about, or the way people talk about Michael Jordan in the context of the NBA is that he saved the NBA because attention was waning at that point in time. And so there's some, and to Stephen A's point and to our point and my point earlier, Michael Jordan absolutely is the genesis of the way we hate the conversation.
It's so
about
true.
The NBA.
No question.
It has absolutely been ruined this way. The NBA is so unique in that it is a team sport that is so individually driven. Your guy has the ball in his hands, holding the ball every possession if you want him to. And one single player can absolutely take over an entire game, and which is the most thrilling thing and also the most disgusting thing, depending upon how you feel about the sport at large. Like, it welcomes in the layman more than any other sport, because not only do you recognize the one player, you see their face, right? Like this is like unique for sports. Like you look at their face, you see that they're like not covered up with uniform, like every other, football players, their faces are covered up. Hockey players, their faces are covered up. Baseball players aren't they're not nearly as
it's not as emotional of a game.
No. So there's like a connection that you make because there's like a really personal thing that happens with NBA basketball players. But it has absolutely ruined the idea of the team for a lot of people. And so when Stephen A. I mean, I don't believe that the NBA is ruined, other than what I was saying, just the conversation. But I know what he's saying. Like, I get it. It's just like, I don't know what you do. Like, it's just that's how it works, man.
The other thing is, this kind of reminds me of the sort of European versus American philosophy on basketball conversation we've been having, in that MJ was good enough to play the game exactly the way he played it. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of guys for the next 10, 15 years who wanted to be MJ, and the best version of themselves was not that guy.
Right. Oh, that's so great.
You can play one-on-one.
Part of what made this so hard is that Kobe actually was. He's like a rare example of a carbon copy.
Yes.
But that's very rare.
But that's very rare for most guys.
Tracy McGrady should not have tried to be the next Jordan.
Is there a way you could have leveraged your scoring ability into a different style and more effective, more impactful kind of basketball player? But everyone's like, well, I want to be that guy. And I think there are a lot of guys who went on the wrong course in terms of maximizing themselves. I know that's kind of a different point than what you guys are saying, but I do...
But it's all in the world.
That's kind of how I see the Jordan impact. Jordan did, clearly, like nothing wrong in how he played the game, but there are a lot of guys where it's like, dude, why is you trying to hit that shot the best basketball player?
Right.
It's not.
And here's what's interesting, though, about the Yoke thing is that part of, and I know all of us well enough to know that part of one of the reasons we would so love a Nuggets championship is it would feel like it would validate Jokic's greatness.
Yeah.
But the thing is, a championship would almost certainly validate the team's greatness. And that's like way more powerful. Like if the Nuggets win a title next year, it's almost certainly going to be because Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, and Jokic, and whoever else somehow formed into this perfect cohesive unit that worked so perfectly that Murray had a moment and MPJ had a moment and Jokic had a moment and they're all playing off each other so perfectly. And it's funny because conceptually, like I think when most people close their eyes and picture it, they picture Jokic going for 50.
Right.
And like that might happen. But to me, it wouldn't make Jokic any greater or less great. It's just like it's probably going to be the way that team comes together. But we're so steeped in viewing things through the prism of this one guy did it and everyone else was just standing around close to him.
Absolutely. Unless Jason Tatum, then he starts passing. But that's the way to play.
But the larger thing is that sometimes it is that. Sometimes LeBron literally is just the best player in the world, and that's all you can do is just watch.
LeBron has 4 championships.
It's true. I mean, that's a lot of championships, though.
Yeah, but in 19 seasons? And LeBron is like that good.
It's true. No, he needs help for sure, but it like... There have been a bunch of really great squads that he's been a part of, and he's the common denominator. Basketball is such where you can, if the talent is transcendent enough, you can absolutely take over a game. Right?
Now, by the way, this conversation is not all scoring versus passing. Like the next version of this conversation, I think we're kind of there with the heliocentric stuff. Luka and Dallas, did they look a little better when he laid off the gas a little bit?
Right.
Totally.
But one of the things I really appreciate about where the NBA is at right now, it's either, oh, that's a great team, or the way that guy is great is going to help push this conversation forward a little bit. Jokic in particular, it's my favorite thing about him. I do think slowly but surely we're sort of creeping our way out of an archaic perspective on the game in this way.
I also, the last layer of this that I think is interesting, I mean, is this the 30th straight time I'll reference Draymond Green's podcast? But he keeps referencing the new media and its players. Last night, LeBron James, he has to insert himself in the conversation. I haven't heard from him for like 24 hours, but he hopped on.
Good point.
He's starting a new podcast, I think, based on his hint. I'm going to be on a new podcast. Is it my own? So he's the worst. And the way he teases things. He's honestly just Paul Millsap that's like great, way greater.
Hey,
but he's the same
like
personality.
Just a pod from Akron.
Just a pod from Akron. It's going to be
God,
called that.
He doesn't do that. I'm
It
gonna be so
definitely
mad.
is going to be
Dude,
called
He
that.
absolutely needs to call it that.
Oh, it's going to be called that, and it's going to be the worst podcast you've ever seen. It's, oh my God. Anyway, this idea of new media, this idea of, I understand why players want to take back their own narrative. We all want to take back our own narrative. Who would rather tell the story of Brendan Vogt than Brendan Vogt? He would tell it the most flattering for Brendan Vogt.
This is true.
Right? If D-Line told the story of Brendan Vogt, he might not like that story.
I agree.
No,
But
I promise you
wouldn't
hate
let that.
story.
I would not greenlight that film.
So Katie's clapback here of
authorized.
Stephen A. Like Stephen A. is a guy that calls people out. I mean, like that's what he does. We got to divide this story into 2 sides. You take one, I'll take the other. Katie sucks. It's my side. Like I'm going to go for it. Players hate this, and that's why this idea of new media is to me is so hilarious. Draymond Green even is like trying to replace the old media. You're not going to replace it. DNVR is not going to replace the old media. I really don't think so. We just invent a new one alongside it, and people are going to have to decide which one they like better and which one they take. And this idea of like we're here to take your jobs, it's like you don't understand how any of this works.
No. That's, and frankly, like if we're talking DNVR is never like that. It's not designed to take over old media. It's designed to work in concert with. It's like you get the official source, and then you get opinions that are slanted towards, or at least focused on, the side that you are most aligned with, philosophically, or at least like emotionally. Players too, it's just like the learned NBA fan just like wants different perspectives. This is what you should want in all aspects of life, is to sort of like try to understand the larger picture by hearing people who have different perspectives on things. This is what anytime I work on any design, I'll put out on Twitter, I'll be like, yo, can I get some feedback? Because I want, like, I know what I think, I know what Adam thinks, I know what whatever, but I don't know what just somebody who has nothing to do with my life or my perspective thinks about a certain thing. Things come up that you never considered before because you only know what you know in this life. And so you should always seek out as many perspectives as you possibly can on everything.
I think a lot of this conversation is about intended audiences and bubbles. I kind of view it through the inside prism, inside the TNT show, because there's a new, younger kind of basketball fan that might say, I hate this. They're not talking about the game. They're not pushing the game forward. There are millions of people who think it's the best part of the night.
Right.
It's a beautiful.
I do. I love
exactly
the show.
what it should be. And this is my point: is there's not one audience.
Right.
There's not one audience that's hungry for the same thing.
Right.
And so as we do.
Also, there's nobody that's great enough to be good at all of these things.
All of it.
Like, the thing is, I love Charles Barkley. I don't like his analysis at least 50% of the time. I just don't care. He's too funny.
But the show's hilarious.
It's hilarious.
Yeah,
like,
totally
it's great.
Agree. I think we're in a weird thing with sports fandom now. There's the enlightenment of the sports fan. We want to find the truth about the game and the discourse, the truth, the right answer. And I think with a lot of these conversations,
there isn't a truth, man. That's actually how the world works. There's not a truth. There's just multiple perspectives, and the more angles you can look at the thing, the more true your objectivity can become, the more complete.
You guys want to smoke some weed?
Guys, Monday back. It felt great to be back here. Great to argue with you guys, to yell at you guys, vote.
Well, so where do we land? Am I right or am I wrong? I don't understand. Like, are the Warriors back or not back?
We'll know by the end of Game 3.
We hope you guys enjoyed it. The man with the wind in his hair is back tomorrow. We're going to be talking Josh Kroenke presser. Lots of things to get to.
People have been crying for a more handsome show.
They really have been, man.
They
got a little bit of it today. They did
a little bit
back. Tomorrow we'll get the full handsome squad. Hit that like button on the way out, everybody.